Hi everyone, I'm Annie. Some of you may know me from my Instagram, Chronic Kabisi. If you don't, I have been suffering from Lyme disease for 6 years now. I was only diagnosed last year though. I personally find it really helpful watching other people's YouTube videos of their experiences and treatments that they've done. I find it really comforting, so I thought I'd do the same. I'm currently in Germany at the moment. I start a integrative Lyme disease program on Monday, which I'm very nervous, excited about. So I thought I'd just do a little pre-treatment update, recap, whatever. If you don't know about Lyme disease, whatever, I'm going to go through a little bit now. So I've been suffering from symptoms of Lyme for 6 years. I went camping in Devon and I came back and found a bite mark on my ankle. I didn't really think much of it at the time. I was working in a pharmacy, so I asked my colleague, the pharmacist, if he thought it was infected because it was quite sore and quite big. And he said if it doesn't go in a few days, you might need some antibiotics. So I just left it and it did go by itself, so I didn't need any antibiotics in the end, and I just forgot about it. About 2-3 months later, things started to go massively downhill. Sorry, I do have a book because I forget things, so I've had to write everything down. So yeah, the first symptoms I got really was bladder pain. It was all in that area. I'd constantly get told I had UTIs, even if there was no infection showing up. There'd always be blood in my urine. I'd just be given antibiotics over and over again. They never ever sorted the issue out. It probably just made me feel worse. My mental health was getting really bad, my fatigue, I was struggling to get into work. I was having to take loads of time off sick. We just couldn't figure out what the problem was really. It got to the point when I was missing so much time off work, my old boss offered to pay for me to have a private, or just to find out what was wrong with me privately, because the NHS just didn't know. So we went to a private hospital in, I think it was in Worcester, and it was a urologist I saw, and he said he thought I had a condition called interstitial cystitis, which is a chronic bladder condition. It causes inflammation in the bladder. It's basically like having a urine infection times 100 constantly. It's horrendous. So he did a cystoscopy for me under anaesthetic, a general anaesthetic, and a hydrostension, which is where they blow your bladder up to see what's going on. There was pinpoint bleeding in my bladder when he blew it up, and my blood pressure was going up as they were filling my bladder up, even though I was asleep, even though I was unconscious. So that was worrying. So when I came round, he confirmed to me that I had interstitial cystitis, and there was no cure for that, but there was treatment available. So we started to go down the treatment route for that, and first I went on a medication called Almiron, which has horrendous side effects, including nausea, your hair can fall out, loads of stuff, and it isn't guaranteed either. It's supposed to build up the bladder lining. I tried it for a few months. It's really, really hard to get hold of. My doctor managed to do it, but I know a lot of people in the UK do struggle to get hold of it. It didn't work for me anyway, so we tried something else. So then I started to have installations, which is when they put a catheter into your urethra and fill your bladder up with a solution. I had 3 different types of that. You have to have them weekly for the first month, so it's pretty intense. I've had hundreds over the last few years. Oh, it's my mum.
Hi.
So yeah, where were we? Brain, blah. Okay, so we got the IC thing. So yeah, so then I just thought all my problems that I was having, the fatigue, bladder pain, everything was just down to that one condition. But then things started to get a lot worse. My anxiety got so bad. I mean, under my depression. I've always struggled with mental health, but this was worse. I literally wouldn't get out of my bedroom. I shared a house with 3 other lads, which might not have helped at the time, but they were as supportive as they could be, bless them. But I would literally just shut myself in my room. I'd be taking my medication to sleep in the day just because I didn't want to be awake. This is horrendous, and it's bad that I'm even admitting this, but this is how bad it got. I would have a bucket in my room to wee in because I didn't want to go out of my room, and I'd just throw it out of the window. And that is vile, but that's how bad things got with my anxiety. I just couldn't face anyone. And it got to that point I had to just leave my job. I couldn't do it anymore. They tried everything, they wanted me to stay. I loved my job in the pharmacy. I was building a career there, but I just had to go. I couldn't physically cope with it anymore, and I used to walk to work. I used to walk like 2 miles to work every day. I'd be stood on my feet all day at work, by the computer. It was a fast-paced job. I worked in a busy walking centre pharmacy, so it was, not just your usual pharmacy. It was pretty constant, and I loved it, but I just couldn't do it anymore. So I had to leave my job, and then things just got worse and worse and worse from there. I've written a few symptoms down so I can read some out. That should be a bit easier than just doing it from my brain. So after that I started to get really bad pains in my legs. It was like nerve pain. It was almost like somebody was pulling my nerves from the back, especially around my knee area. And still to this day I have to sleep with a pillow between my legs because I can't have my skin touching. It's just agony. My bladder got worse. The bladder pain is like nothing else. Honestly, it's like your bladder spasms, it bleeds, you feel like you're on fire, like all around that area, all down your legs to your knees. It's horrible, it's horrendous. I'd have nausea and sickness from it. I'd have retention, so I couldn't empty my bladder. I'd get suicidal over it, or just felt suicidal in general. I'd have worse periods, much worse. It was just horrendous. So I kept trying to go back to the doctor saying, nothing's helping, I'm just getting worse. I don't know what to do. So eventually I was sent to a gynecologist, who then diagnosed me with endometriosis. So then I thought, okay, that kind of makes sense now. We've got 2 diagnoses. There can't be anything else wrong. So, we went ahead with a laparoscopy, which is to remove the endo. And after that, I didn't get any better. I thought I would. I thought things would be sorted from there, but they really weren't. Far from it, really. And my fatigue was starting to get a lot worse. My dizziness when I was standing up, I was just exhausted. Not exhausted is the wrong word, because fatigue is just on another level. Trust me, it is. It's just, you can't think straight, nothing. You can't. Even just being yourself is energy. Just being, being social, whatever. So then I was sent to I can't remember what specialist he was now, but he wasn't an ME specialist, but he was interested in ME, and he knew my GP knew him and knew he was a good doctor, so sent me to him, and he was lovely, and he understood all my symptoms I had going on, and said that I had ME and I was a classic case of ME. So again I thought, okay, I have answers now, let's try and work through this. So from there I had physiotherapy and counselling, because that is the only therapy really the NHS offer for ME right now, and in my opinion that isn't good enough. I know the funding issue and whatever, but so many people are just left to deal, and it doesn't help, it doesn't help, that treatment for that, it just doesn't. The doctors aren't trying to get to the root of the problem. So I wasn't really satisfied with that diagnosis, but I had to sort of take that and move forward. So, and then a bit later on I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, because I was getting all over body pain. You know, I still do now. I feel bruised. Like, I'll wake up in the morning and I feel like someone's just battered me, like all over. It's so sensitive, all over. Yeah. So then I was left with those 4 diagnoses. So I had IC, endo, fibro, ME. So I thought, okay, that makes sense now. Let's move forward with it. You know, all the treatment I was doing, it just wasn't working. Nothing was helping. I was getting worse and worse. And it wasn't until one of my friends mentioned to me, he's a hairdresser, and one of his clients, they were just talking, and she'd had an illness and he was telling her about me, and she said how similar my symptoms were to hers, and that she actually had Lyme disease, and she got privately tested for that. And I didn't really know much about Lyme disease at this point at all, really. I'd heard of it, but I didn't know the symptoms. I didn't know the controversy in the NHS or in the world with it right now. I had no idea. But everything just it just made sense, really. And when I Googled it, as you do, everything just fit into place. And I remembered back then to the bite mark that I had, and that everything started to go downhill from there. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is the answer. I have Lyme disease. So that was the start of the battle. I spoke to my GP, who was always lovely. She does her best for me, and she said, I'll send you off for an NHS test. So we did that. I knew that they're like 50% accurate. They're very common for false negatives. And when she called me with the results, they had to do 10 tests from your blood, and you need 5 positive bands to come up to be diagnosed with Lyme disease. I only had 1, so I didn't qualify for treatment in the NHS with that. So again, I was just kind of left not knowing. My GP didn't really know what to do, so she referred me to the infectious diseases clinic in Birmingham. And then I think it was a couple of weeks before my appointment, I had a phone call from the doctor, and he just said, look, you can come, but we can't help you. You know, you don't have a positive result. This isn't enough for us to work with. So you can come, but whatever. So I thought, well, what's the point? I'm just going to go and be told there's nothing wrong with me, and it'll be a waste of time. So I didn't go. So then I just did some more research into the condition, and found that many people in the UK have had to have their blood tests done in Germany, because Germany are way up on their Lyme disease. And that is why I'm here. So I decided that I would get my tests done at this place called Army Labs. So my family got together. I think it was my nan that offered to pay, bless her, and we managed to get these blood tests sent off in the post. And then they came back, and we found out I got Lyme disease, basically. I'd come back positive for chronic Lyme. My immune system was severely suppressed. I basically have no immune system, and I had 2 co-infections as well. So I thought, okay, I've got some evidence now. I've got some solid evidence. They have to help me, surely. So I went back to my GP, gave her these results, and she was like, okay, I'm going to refer you back to the infectious diseases clinic. So there we went again with that. Thought, okay, this is good. I'm going to be seeing someone that actually knows about Lyme. He's going to believe me this time because I've got the evidence. So again, 2 weeks before my appointment, I get a phone call from the same guy saying, we're not going to accept these results from you. They're not NHS. I'm sorry, you can come, but there's really no point. So I thought, I'm going to question him this time, because I don't think that's very fair, and I wanted to know why, and because I knew how inaccurate the NHS testing was, but they won't accept any other. So I was like, well, how am I supposed to get accurately tested? You can't, basically, in the NHS, you can't get accurately tested. So again, I was just left. They'll, you know, happily treat all my other conditions. The lists of treatments I've had over the years, the operations, the procedures, hundreds. Like, I've written them in here. It's shocking, really. Yeah. So they happily treat all the problems that have come from Lyme disease, but not the actual Lyme disease itself. So we can treat all these other things for years and years and years. They're never going to go because we're not treating the root cause. So yeah. So after much research, I came across this clinic called Infusio, and I'd heard so much good stuff about it. I'd seen a few, even celebrities have been there to have their treatment. They got such great success rates, but the only problem was it was really expensive, and I'm not wealthy in the slightest. I come from a working class family. We're not rich by any stretch of the imagination at all. So yeah, we didn't really know what to do, but my auntie and my mum, they got together, they decided they were going to start fundraising, and then they met this other guy. Well, I don't know how they met him actually. I think my auntie Jackie knew him, and he knew what was going on with me, that they were trying to raise money for treatment, and he offered to help, and he's done it before, and he has a lot of connections, so he got on board, and we managed to raise a fair bit of money, to be fair, while I'm here. So yeah, and I'll be forever grateful for that. Forever grateful. You know, I know a lot of people don't get this opportunity to get this treatment, and I think that's so unfair. I really do. So yeah, I've had the symptoms now for 6 years. I'm just going to go through a few of the symptoms that I suffer with, just to see, you know, if anybody's watching this that also has Lyme or has ME and thinks, you know, oh, I might have Lyme disease. You know, Lyme disease for everybody is different, I know, but some symptoms, you know, can be similar. So I'll read some of mine out that I've had, and I still have pretty much all of these now. So, and bear with me because there's 3 pages. So okay, so I get my pains in my legs. I get obviously my bladder pain. I've talked about the spasming, burning. I have literally had to have hot water bottles stuck to me for years that I've burnt my stomach. I have scars all over my stomach now from it. I get sickness every day, nausea. Again, social anxiety. I've always had mental health issues, but it's never been to this degree, and I've never had to medicate for it before. So yeah, it's definitely worse. My periods got worse. Obviously I've got endometriosis, so they're bad anyway, but they're way worse now than they were, and they last longer, they're more sporadic. The PMT I get is like crazy. Like, I get suicidal. I have attempted suicide before just because I'm premenstrual, and that's not normal. Yeah, so I get dizziness, brain fog, all the time. Like, I can't. That's why I've had to write this stuff down, because I just wouldn't remember it. What I'm doing right now, I get stuck on my words all the time. Yeah, and it's horrible. It's something that I never used to have an issue with. My memory, my concentration is just awful. I'm always feverish, or I get hot sweats. I can't regulate my temperature. I get really sensitive to light and noise. I seem to have developed dyslexia. I've never had an issue with writing before, never, and now I'm always doing my D's and B's the wrong way around. I'm always spelling things wrong. My handwriting is shocking. Yeah, I get mood swings more often. I get rage, which, you know, I'm quite a mellow person, so for me, yeah, it's a noticeable change. I've mentioned the bruised all over feeling. Like, I literally do feel bruised all the time. I've got this rash on my skin called a petechial rash, which is, well, it can be linked to meningitis, but I've had a test for that and they said that I don't have that. So it's to do with Lyme again. It's because you've got low platelets, I think I was told. But yeah, I've got 2 tiny little blood spots all over my skin, all over my body.